All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Property Players Podcast. I'm your host, C. Muzan. Got a real special guest with me today. He's a guy that we got a chance to get connected on LinkedIn. He was doing some bigger things in the city of Philadelphia around entrepreneurship. But as we've been talking, it's been relevant that he is also in the real estate space. So I wanted to make sure that he got a chance to share his story and add some value to you guys out there in the community. So without further ado, Mr. McKinsey Alston, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Pleasure's mine, man. So again, we've been connected for a few weeks now, but on the podcast, I just like to jump straight in and give me the origin story, man. Tell me, who is McKinsey? Like, where do you come from? Start as early as you like to. If you want to go back to birth, if you can remember being out of the womb, you could start there or wherever is relevant.
1985. 1985. So just a little bit about me. Grew up right outside of Philadelphia in New Jersey. And my family, my dad's from Philadelphia. His family is from North Philly. So just being able to kind of see both the suburban lifestyle, but also being around Philadelphia, really understanding the different things that the city had to offer. I always say I got blessed with both worlds. I got to kind of grow up in a suburb while also growing up in the city too, to kind of understand the ins and outs. So I always say New Jersey raised, Philly, or New Jersey born, Philly raised.
There we go.
In a nutshell. Dad kind of grew up in an entrepreneurial household. My dad was an entrepreneur. My dad built houses and was in construction. So at a young age, just on roofs on the summertime, as much as that sucked, did a lot of demo work.
Yeah.
That sucked as well, but my dad was adamant that, growing up, I had a skill set that went outside of just education. If something ever happened, he wanted me to be able to go back on a roof or, do some carpentry or do demo work. So that was when I first got my first taste of just the real estate game and everything that it had to offer. And then I went into school. I ended up staying pretty local. Went to school at Rutgers Camden in New Jersey.
Nice.
So wanted to be close to Philly, but didn't want to spend and pay the out-of-state tuition. So I stayed in New Jersey, got close enough to the city that I could, and graduated with a degree in marketing. And didn't actually do anything in marketing. Ended up doing an internship as a financial advisor, so close to your heart.
Yeah.
Lynch in DC. So I spent a summer down there. Studied at the University of Maryland. Why I did it, it was interesting. I thought that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But realized, as you probably know, it's not like the Wolf of Wall Street. So complete opposite, actually. So I realized
complete opposite. That is not an accurate depiction of what really happens.
I was expecting to have like parties and fun. I'm like, this is gonna be great, like see Ferrari, and I was like, none of that was happening.
None of it.
A lot of cold calling. So I ended up going back to my senior year, not really knowing what I was gonna do.
Gotcha.
And then met a guy randomly at a career fair for Target, and started my career with Target Corporation. I really just spent 8 years there, learning a lot about not only myself but leadership. I think that's where I got the most value with how to handle people.
Yeah.
Regardless of the industry that you're in, people are always going to be the reason you're successful or you fail. Yeah. But at the same time, as a leader, it's really important that you make sure you're making adjustments.
Absolutely.
And I kind of been able to translate that into customer service as well, which has helped me in the real estate game. So did that, kind of jumped around a little bit in HR, did some consulting. And then about a year ago, I jumped into real estate as a real estate agent.
Nice.
Rental agent, real estate agent. When I bought my first house, I had like the first time home buyer experience where I had a great agent, but having the other side of the agent, not knowing kind of the dark of the seller agent and just not hearing everything and the communication, it was a little bit of a nerve-wracking process. Like, what's this? And why am I signing this away? And like, you guys are really deep into my personal life around my lender. And like, why do you keep asking for the same forms like every 45 or 60 days? Like, I'm a responsible adult. Like, I don't understand why you keep asking for the same stuff. So I was in that process, and I realized like, it's got to be a better way to make sure that the buyer, when they're going through that process, is educated enough to feel comfortable in the decisions that they're making. So I decided to go and get my license.
Nice.
Got my
Take
license.
take this a step back. Hold on.
Yeah,
Take me way back. Right?
sure.
Back in high school, and you're growing up in an entrepreneurial household. Was the thought always go to college? Was the thought all is that always was that always going to be the move? Was that always the next step? Did you ever think about like in those senior years or those moments, right, when you're thinking about college, you ever think about just going to be in business with dad, or what were your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I didn't, because one reason was the side of the business that I saw the most from my dad was being on the roof and doing all the construction. And I was like, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
But I got to see the client piece of it with my dad, and how he navigated conversations with his clients, getting them to spend a lot of more when you're dealing with homes that are older homes and they're restoring them. The cost is going to be a lot more. So because of what my dad did, a lot of restoration work, they're big projects that would last 6 or 7 months.
Sure.
So I got to be around a lot of the high end clients that are CEOs of pharmaceutical companies and doctors. So just that clientele and interacting with both, I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. But I also thought college might be a good way for me to figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurial, something that I always thought about doing, but I didn't have that like book knowledge yet, I guess. And my parents really thought it was important for me to get that knowledge. The one thing I will say though is when it came to me picking a school, my dad and my mom were very adamant that, listen, you're going to go into school and you have a school here that's going to give you some money to go there, but you also have a school that you really want to go to that you're going to spend and you're going to pay to go to. And the message I got was, you can choose whatever one you want, but one's going to leave you in a ton of debt and the other one's not. So make a wise decision. We'll guide you and help you, but at the same time, like, your debt won't become our debt. So I was very mindful of that. Yeah. And that's why I ended up going to record scamming. It just made more sense. And like I said, I didn't owe a lot when I graduated. Sure. I was blessed to get some scholarships and grants and stuff. So
it's good. It's the way.
I tried on a budget.
That's right. That's right. It's the way you should do it, right? Going and we could go on a rant all day about this college and student loan debt and all that type of stuff. But we won't, because this is Property Players, so we're not going to go there. But as you're going through that journey, so now that I understand that side of it, now as you're going through the journey in school, were you ever exposed to people in real estate? Were you ever exposed to the industry from people jumping in as investors or agents or anything like that? Or was it really just about school during that time?
My dad has always owned properties. So I was able to kind of see the headaches of some of that stuff, and kind of partners with family and kind of how those deals can go bad, and kind of got to see the ugly side of some of that investment.
Because your dad was he was investing actively in real estate?
Yeah. So long time ago, my great-great-grandfather was huge on two things. He was huge on buying land, because he said they're not going to make any more land. And he was huge on having insurance. So spending the money to insure whatever you own. So because of that, my dad and my family had a lot of just land throughout different areas. And my dad built on some, got rid of some, but for the most part growing up, he carried the burden of carrying a lot of the taxes and the different things that come with owning a lot of property. So I got to kind of see that side of it. At the time, I really didn't know anything about it. I just was like, oh, my uncle's not doing that, or my dad now owns this property, and my uncle owned it, but now my dad owns it. So I didn't know anything about it. I didn't understand it. I just thought it was cool that my dad had property. I didn't really think anything of it.
That's important, though. And I think to take a break there and to talk to the listeners and people that are in the community right now, like just understanding how much that does actually influence your child's decision to get involved in a certain industry is because they've seen it, right? So what you're saying right now, McKinsey, is the fact that you saw it happening. You were aware of your father, grandfather talking about real estate, talking about land. You might not have comprehended everything, right? The whole picture of what they were trying to do, whether it was a legacy play or just continuing to build wealth for the family, whatever it was, you didn't see it, but you were aware to know that there was something about this real estate thing that, you know, my dad, my grandfather really cared about. And I think that gives people the I don't know. I don't want to say a head start, but it really does give people the ability to, as a kid, start to understand that there's other ways to build wealth, to not just go to school, get good grades, get a job, and then continue to work that job, that there are other ways to bring in streams of income. I think the fact that you got a chance to see that early in life, it's actually helped you, and maybe one of the reasons that you've been involved in the real estate process. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I think it gave me insight into like a world where you can have passive income, but you also don't want to over leverage yourself. So you want to make sure that if you're going to have property, you're thinking of things like the taxes and stuff that come with it. You're thinking about if you have rental properties, like evictions, and making sure that you're on top of that, and vacancies. So like that part about it, I understood. And I think, you know, seeing that was like, why are you always fixing this house? And it was like, well, you have to keep up with it because people live in it. So you can't rent it if it's not up to code and things like that. So yeah, I would say, unbeknownst to myself, that I definitely believe it was a strong foundation. And now when I'm in it working with my dad and certain investment properties as well, I think seeing it now from my angle, now with all the real estate knowledge I have, all those conversations that he was having with me as a kid and I was growing up, and I didn't understand it, but now I look back and I go, oh, that's what he meant. Like 10 years from now, it's going to be worth this much and you can sell it. I'm like, why do you just get rid of this land? You're just paying for it. Right. He's like, 10 years from now, somebody's going to build on it and it'll be worth money. So it's like the patient game in real estate, I think I learned at an early age, and that's been able to help me now.
That's so important, because that's what most people lack in the game right now. They lack patience. They think everything's going to happen quickly. Everything's going to be a flip. Everything's going to, you know, make their money right away. And that's not the game. That's not the game.
Nah, not even close. Not even close.
Good, man. So now you're out of college. You said you jumped on board with Target right after college, right? Or during that time. Then take me through that transition period of Target into real estate, or you had a couple stops before then, or how did it go from after college into real estate?
Yeah, so I've had 4 stops before getting into real estate. Target was, I graduated in 2008, so Target was 8 years of my life right out. I think I got into that position. I had a lot of responsibilities, was learning a lot about not only myself, but learning a lot about people and understanding how that you not only have to be accountable for your actions, but you are accountable for your team's actions as well, even when you're not there. So I think I grew up there just learning about, you know, people, but also how hard you have to work to be successful. So I had some success there, was promoted through the ranks, different stores, different positions, got, you know, travel all around. They paid for my master's. They paid for me to go and get, you know, additional education in HR. Yeah. So I took advantage of the opportunity. Always knew I wanted to be on my own, but I wasn't 100% sure like what that looked like yet. Sure. Because it was like, okay, I am experiencing a lot of great things. And it wasn't until that relationship ended up not working out as well for me, and I decided to go to something different, that I really realized, you know, how hard it is to always work for somebody else. And then at a blink, if they don't like the color of your shoe or something, you no longer have that security that you once had. So I got to experience, you know, being able to do my thing and be the way that I am, and be who I am, with a blanketed protection of the political protection, because I never really got into it because I just wasn't interested in it, because to me it's a waste of time. But I always had someone that I worked for that was really political and just made sure that I didn't have to compromise my like willingness to not do it. Sure. They just took care of me for it. And so I didn't have that. I really realized like, oh my God, so now I'm out and there's a balance that I need to figure out, or how do I navigate that? Sure. So I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I think from there on, real estate was the thing that always made the most sense to me. The passive income, stocks and bonds, but then real estate, and just to your point, the long game, finding a way to acquire properties and then sitting on them But in order to acquire properties, I needed to continue to work to make the money to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
So I think that was a learning. So as I was transitioning out of Target, my goal was always to get into real estate, but it was as an investor. It wasn't as an agent,
Right.
First and foremost.
It makes sense. And you hit, you said the book that I think about the most when it comes to transitioning into entrepreneurship or even into real estate, and that's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Robert Kiyosaki always says that we've gotten all of our financial information, all the financial information that we need has come from the game of Monopoly, right?
Yeah.
4 greenhouses equals 1 red hotel. That's just the way it goes. And so if you take that formula, and that's what Robert Kiyosaki says, you continue to take that formula over time, you'll continue to build wealth. And I think it's something that I think a lot of people are catching on now, because you're seeing the boom of real estate from an agent side, from an investor side, a lot of people going out and starting to learn more about it. What was your curve, like your learning curve, when you decided like, hey, I think I'm going to become an agent, or I'm going to get my license? What was your learning curve? Did you have to study a bunch? Did you go see a mentor? Like what was your process?
Yeah. So I actually took a class. I felt like to become an agent, I guess a little backtrack. So I wanted to be an investor, but I didn't know enough about real estate, the expertise of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm always been and will always be a believer of on-the-job training, things that you can learn by doing. And I really felt like that was super important. So that's why I initially went and got my license. And to get your license in Philadelphia, you have to study a certain amount of hours. It's like 60 hours. Mm-hmm. And they give you this huge book, and you have to take a test, and you have to learn, and you have to pass the class, and then you have to go and take the test, the national test and the state test. So just my philosophy was, I'm going to learn as much as I can book-wise, and then take that and get a mentor. And the brokers that I decide to join has to be somewhere where I can like talk to and learn from the brokers. I don't want to learn from a team leader and none of that nonsense. Like I want to learn from the person and the people that are responsible for building this brokerage, because I felt like that was going to help me grow significantly. So I was going to take my hustle that I was born with and the work ethic that I got from my family, added some book smarts from learning from, the real estate books, and then link up with a great brokerage where I can learn underneath the brokers of the firm that I was working for. And that's where I went to Copper Hill Real Estate, where they have 3 great brokers, and they're hands-on. They have mentor sessions. Sure. And it's a lot of what we're doing right now, where you're trying new things and they're giving you feedback, but also challenging you and asking questions. They're not telling you how to do stuff, sure, but they're asking enough questions where they're forcing you to think differently on a regular basis. And to have access to that is great. I mean, to combine that 20 years of experience. So there's nothing they haven't seen. So I always have a resource that I can text or call or just go talk to. And that's really helped my learning curve. But yeah, the first couple deals I did were super scary. The first tour I did was like an absolute nightmare.
Tell us about it. Give me some war stories of the first couple of deals of you trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah. So the first tour I ever gave was to a group of 3 girls, and they were moving to Manayunk, and I was like, all right, how hard can it be? So I go in, not prepared at all. Like I'm thinking like, I was going to show them the house. Like it can't be that difficult. So I get in, I'm trying to show them around, and there's this girl that's there that's not living there. It's not even from Philly. She opens a notebook with like 35 questions. I might have answered like 2 of them. I was like, who? I'm like, some of the questions she was asking, like, didn't even, like, I was like, who even thinks about that? And she's like, the width of the steps, like, how hard do you think it's going to be to get a bed around this space, and like, what's the measurement of the railing here? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, ask that. Yeah, so I just remember like after that traumatic like hour, I mean, I felt like I was getting kicked in the face the entire time. Like it was sure. For me, it was really bad. So I called my broker. I'm like, so you're probably gonna get a call. And I think this is another thing I learned. Because you're in an employee mindset. So I'm like, you're probably gonna get a call about how terrible my service was, and I don't know anything about real estate, and And I'm like, you're probably gonna want to get rid of me because this experience was god awful, and they didn't end up taking the house, and I'm like, pretty much the service was terrible.
Yeah.
And he just laughed and he was like, you got to remember two things. One, there's going to be a lot of times that you don't know questions, and some people are just going to ask stuff that like is irrelevant. Just tell them you don't know, and you'll get back to them. Like, that's okay. It's normal. And he's like, the second thing you need to learn is you're not an employee. Like, you don't work for me. You work for yourself. So you being unprepared and not having what you need to have ready to go only makes you look bad. It doesn't make me look bad.
Doesn't make me look bad at all. Yeah.
It's like, I'm the broker. Like, I'm Tim. You're McKinsey. Like,
yeah,
you with me. It just is bad for your brand. So I think that like I learned two really good lessons there. Is like, one, every time I'm out there, I'm representing myself and who I am as a person, but also as a leader and an agent. And the second thing I recognize is like just being prepared and like making sure you're walking the area before your tours, and making sure that you have the information that you have available and just having that ready to go, even if you don't need it, just having it ready to go. So I think that was really rough for me, just because I was a fish out of water, and typically when you're in situations like that, you have experience. So your experience can get you through it. Well, I didn't have any experience, so I just tried to do what I thought made sense.
But that's the game, though, right? Like that's the game. That's what gets you better. And you know this, being a professional, but like it's through the failures that we learn. It's through the times when we're unprepared that we'll never be unprepared again. I try to teach this to some of my, agents that I have working with me in financial services. I try to teach them the same thing. They're always wondering, like, how to overcome a certain objection, or that they need to know everything going out there. I'm like, listen, there's going to be plenty of times that you may be unprepared. You may not know that answer. You may not be at that level yet, but it doesn't mean that, one, you can't just say, like, I'm not sure, and then I'll get back to you, and you still may keep that client. Or secondly, right, again, the thing that people underestimate is just the fact that they are a human being just like everyone else. And so you're going to make mistakes, you're going to not know certain things. Then it's just about, are you learning from that? And then are you prepared the next time? I always used to tell people that there was a lot of times I didn't know questions or answers to certain questions. But once I got asked that question across the kitchen table with a person, I never forgot the answer ever again, because I was now more prepared for whatever situation I was putting myself in. And so that's what you have. And that's what obviously you've learned from situations like that. But you got to put yourself out there in order to learn from it, right?
Yeah, man. I think that was in that mindset and really developing as a leader and as a person, and really making sure that I was doing the things that I needed to do to get to that next level.
Absolutely. So taking it a step back, McKinsey, take it a step back. How do you find a good broker? Right? How do you find, because you said you found a good broker after you got the book smarts and you learned a little bit. You said, I want to go work for a good broker. How do you find a good broker, and what qualities were you looking for?
I think first thing I did was I really looked at my network and saw if I could get any recommendations from somebody that was already in the field, and just met with some people, had some coffee with a couple of different brokers. And I would say that I think just going out and meeting brokers and seeing which ones you vibe with is really important. So for me, I had a list of what I really wanted to work with, someone that had experience, and someone that was going to take the time to mentor me, and really take the time to say, hey, let's try this and let me run with it, and then give me that feedback and kind of support me. And I think those were the two things that I really needed, the most. So that was my criteria going in. Another thing that I learned was I'm not interviewing for them to interview me any longer. I'm interviewing them. Absolutely. So it's not about, as an agent, it's not about do they fit you as much as it's about how do you fit into your needs, into what they have to offer. So I think that was a little bit of a different swing than normal. Normally you're getting interviewed as a corporate person or interviewed as an employee, and they're picking you apart. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I smile because I'm like, this is the one time for me to pick somebody else apart. Yeah. So going into each meeting, I knew about the rematch. and the Keller Williams and Berkshire Hathaways and some of those shops. But I met with the brokers. I just really looked at who could I gel with and who is most aligned with what I want to do as a person. And that's why I ended up going with Copper Hill.
That's important. How important though is the name, right? And there's some debate out there that there's not really, there's nothing in a name, but like, would you, if you were giving advice to a newer agent or somebody that's just getting into the field, would you recommend they go with the Keller Williams, the Remax, the Berkshires, those first to look at them, or really just go about the personality of the broker if it fits like what they're looking for?
Yeah, so I actually had do consulting and coaching on the side as well. And one of my clients that I was working with as a coaching her out of her profession and into real estate. So it's actually a real life example where she asked me that same question, and my response to her was, don't go in with a bias at all. The name in my mind doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, it's going to be your hustle and what you do that's going to determine your success. So you have to go in with the things that matter the most to you. And if it's a big name, then go do the big name shops. I mean, if that's important to you, then go after that day, because it was going to be a brand that I was going to build around myself. And whoever the broker was, it's just someone that holds the sign and has the license. But at the end of the day, when people see McKinsey Alston, they're not thinking of Copper Hill. They're thinking of McKinsey Alston, the real estate agent. And that's what I explained to her. And she went through a couple of different companies, some smaller, some bigger. Ended up going with one of the smaller Keller Williams teams, where she had a team leader. She's in DC. But for her, it came down to that team leader made her feel the most comfortable that they were going to really challenge her, but also give her the support that she needed. And to this day, it's been really good for her. But again, that was important to her, was the name and then that support of a team leader. And she's got both of those. But I think it really depends on the person.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with you, man. It depends on the person. For me, and if I come across people that are newer agents or just getting into the field, I always tell them it doesn't matter if you just find someone that can teach you the right way. That's really all that matters in my eyes, is can you find people that understand the industry and will teach you the right way. I know you looked for a broker because that makes sense, right? You want to go to the guy, the top dog that's there. But even the ones that, if you just have a strong agent team and people are willing to help, because sometimes that doesn't happen in real estate either, right?
Yeah.
Where people aren't really willing to help you. But if you have some people around you that are willing to help, that's the most important thing, because our personal brand is what's going to last over time. Keller Williams and Century 21 and Remax and all them, like, they're their own brand. And one day they're going to have to figure out, right, they're probably going to do their own thing with their brand, and it's going to kind of weed out some of the agents. So I would always tell an agent, a newer agent, just make sure that you are building your own personal brand and then getting in a brokerage where they can teach you the things that you need to know, and then you need to be able to run with it. But I think you hit the nail on the head again when you said most people probably look at it like an employee, because they're employee minded, trying to jump into entrepreneurship or a self-employed venture of being in real estate, and they're not looking at it the same way. So they really think of that brokerage like the job, and it's not.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think the one thing that sold me on Copper Hill, because I met with two of the brokers out of the three. One of them talked about just what you just said. He said, listen, like, you're going to come in here and we're going to help you out, and our goal is to help you win, and we'll give you leads and we'll work with you. And your first couple of deals, we'll hold your hand a little bit to make sure the paperwork's solid so you don't get yourself into any trouble. But he was like, the thing you're going to have to figure it out for the first time, especially as an agent, is how do you market yourself? How do you network enough? And how do you level your circle that you currently have on a consistent basis to get business? And I think for me was when I realized, like, I'm like, all right, well, of course my circle knows what I'm doing. And he's like, you'll be surprised. He's like, there's going to be somebody that you're really good friends with that's going to sell their house and buy their house, and it's not going to use you. When you ask them why, they're going to say, they
I
forgot
never
that you were in
knew.
real estate.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And that happened to me.
Yep.
Where one of the girls, and I've known her my whole entire life. She's probably one of my closest friends. Um, she was like, I didn't know,
No.
I forgot you were even in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, you need to get your message out there more. And I think that was feedback to me. Like, you should know. I literally talk to you all the time. She's just like, yeah, but like you're not out there enough. Like, you didn't pop up. Like, I don't see you on the gram. I don't see you on Facebook. Like, I was like, it was funny because I just couldn't get over it. But I was like, she's right though.
It's
Like,
true.
at that point in time, I didn't have a newsletter. I didn't have a website. I did a little bit on Instagram, but not enough. So like, there's definitely some keys and some things that I learned just in that interaction from her of how to pick up and how to kind of brand myself because I hadn't. And I
Yeah.
thought it would just be people knowing what I'm doing, but it's like this whole other like machine that I've learned how to build, which is
At
good.
the end of the day, it really just comes down to people aren't thinking about you. Right? Like
Yeah,
we think we're more important than we are a lot of times. And so
exactly.
we just assume that like you've seen me post 10 times about this. Of course, right? You're thinking about me, but that's not the way it
Yeah,
works. Like people have like real problems and like real issues and like real family life and like all types of stuff. So when it comes time for them to make that buying decision or selling decision, whatever it's going to be, it's literally just about who was in their mind at that time. It's
exactly.
it's never about like, oh, well, I know I'm just going to go with this guy for when I sell my home. It's literally like, hey, I got 80 things to do and then this just popped up. So who's the first person I think of when it comes to selling my house? And that's what marketing is. I just had this conversation with a couple people about the difference, between sales and marketing, and even on LinkedIn where you and I met, or officially kind of met and talked. Even there, I had a conversation with a guy in the comments, and he was talking about. I think I had post. I don't remember if it was my post or someone else's post, but basically he was saying that he doesn't. Oh, it was my post because I posted on LinkedIn that like for my realtor friends, all the realtors that I know, it doesn't make sense to just keep posting your listings over and over and over again on LinkedIn specifically because people aren't looking for that on LinkedIn necessarily. You don't just go there as a
Exactly.
platform and just, want to just, throw out your listings that you have. And he commented and he said something like, no matter what platform I'm on, I'm going to show my listings because I don't know whether people are in the mood for buying or in the, in the market for buying or whatever the case is. And I had to let him know that there was a difference between sales and marketing, because he also made a comment in there where he said something like, I don't think that if I post the article of like the 5 things to do to buy a home, I don't think if I post that article, I'm going to get sales. And I was like, you're 100% right. Those articles are not meant for you to just get sales. Those articles are meant for you to brand yourself and position yourself as the expert in your field, because not everyone's in the market to buy a home right now or sell their home right now. However, when they are in the market, who's the first person that they're going to think of? They're not going to think of the guy that just keeps putting his listings up, because you're not
Yep.
adding any value. You have to constantly add value to people so that they know who you are, so that when it is time for them to make that buying decision, they're going to think about you as the expert. But I think a lot of realtors miss with that one, and it's a branding play.
Yeah, no, and that's 100% correct. One of the things I've been doing is I created a newsletter I sent out the first Friday of the month, and every newsletter is about a different area that I've lived in the city. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. There's things to do, my take on the area, the connection to my family, myself, and my wife, that personal element, some of our favorite restaurants and bars and things we go to, and then activities in the neighborhood. But also, I have a section there about the prices of apartments and the prices of sales. So, like the 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment price for a sale versus the apartment price for a rental, and 3-bedroom, 3-baths, and vice versa. And I actually just closed one of my neighbors using that same newsletter. She was like, I saw the newsletter and I saw the math that you were doing, but then she's like, oh, I saw your letter. Like, let me ask you about the rental. I saw that in there. Like, is there a really big difference? And that conversation led into me explaining to her, sitting down there and having coffee, explaining how much she's going to spend renting for a year versus what that looks like in a mortgage. And the thought of, and for her, what resonated was the thought of her spending 40 grand to rent for the year and have her rent be as much as her mortgage would be. She's like, that doesn't make any sense to me. She's like, so you're telling me if I put 3% down and I kind of manage my budget the right way, I'm going to end up spending the same exact dollar amount that I would, except I'm going to be able to do what I want with it. And if I want to rent one of the rooms out to bring in that income, I'm like, exactly. Now you just took something that's going to be, $1,700 a month for you to live in so you can live by yourself. Now you can buy something, and then if a year down the road, if you want to have someone move into your house as that extra roommate, now you're instead of paying 17, you're going to spend maybe 700, maybe 800. And you do that for 4 or 5 years, you're pretty much somebody's paying half your mortgage every year. Wouldn't you rather be a landlord than being a renter paying somebody else's, landlord bill, their mortgage? And for her, again, that doesn't resonate with everybody, but for her, that resonated like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. I'd much rather buy. And then she decided to buy instead of rent. She was a client of mine, either rental client or buying client. Right. And my goal is always, when I meet with people like that one-on-one, to sit down and give them knowledge around what the market does and what their options are. At the end of the day, it's their choice. But what I felt when I started, and the reason why I got into it, was I want to make sure I provide them with all the tools to make the best decision for them in that point in time. So if it was for her to rent, then it made the most sense. Then that's what I expected her to do. And for her at that time, she's like, I have some extra money. I just got a good bonus. It makes more sense for me to buy right now because I can afford it. I can do it. And I'm budgeted to do it. Let's do that instead. So again, I think that's a service to your point, is I'm out there providing that knowledge. But at the end of the day, my goal is to make sure that anybody that is following me or working with me or talking to me is getting just educated so that they don't feel uncomfortable making whatever decision it is that they want to make. They make the best decision for themselves without having to ask somebody for like insight. Have your own mind, make your own decision.
Absolutely. It's so smart, man. It's such a good point to make sure that that you have to give value up front. Have you found that to be a challenge in the early stages of you being an agent? Just the credibility piece, or not having, because there's obviously, we know there's people that are tenured in real estate, 12, 15, 20 years in the game. Did you get any pushback, or what was kind of your experience with, being about a year in the game?
Yeah, I've gotten some pushback. The question of how do you know, or you haven't really been in it as much. And one of the things I always tell people is, listen, just like any other profession, just because you have 20 years doesn't mean you know what you're doing. You could have 20 years of crappy experience 20 times over. Doesn't mean that you're much any better. The thing that I always try to explain to people as well, though, and kind of how I have the pushback there, is I'm also an investor in my own right. Like, I'm in the process of getting my butt kicked doing a refurb in North Philly. I just had to do my first eviction in West Philly, where they destroyed the kitchen and destroyed the bathrooms, and now I have to rip both those out. And I'm in the process of looking to buy a duplex and try to get that funded. So I think where I lack in some experience, I make up in just the experience of being in their shoes, being in the shoes of an investor and having to deal with finding the money to close the 20% down, or having to evict somebody, or having to do a refurb, and all the things I didn't think about when I jumped into it. Like, oh yeah, I can get this at a deal. Didn't realize I was going to have to fix the roof. Didn't realize I was going to rip all the plumbing out. Didn't realize I was going to knock down the kitchen wall and redo the electric. Didn't realize I had to pull those are things that I learned that you can't. Those are experiences as an agent. When I have an investor, I can give them firsthand, where someone that might have 20 years of an agent experience has never been an investor, but then they're going to go out and try to sell to an investor, but don't really understand what an investor goes through. So in my mind, who's less experienced? That person with the 20 that's never been an investor, or me with 1 year, but I'm an investor going through the grind of it. So I kind of leverage that to my advantage. Yeah. And then the same thing where I spent a lot of my time focused on rental. That's super fun. Most where I like them. And first time home buyers. again, I was a renter for a really long time, didn't believe in buying, and I wasn't educated enough to know the difference. 2 years ago, what was that like? Well, I remember how that felt. So being able to put myself in the shoes of somebody else gives me the credibility of their view because I've been through it versus the credibility of the number of years of experience as an agent.
That's important that you could see that separation, because it's true. People could be in the industry for 20, 30 years and not be good. They can still not be good at what they do.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's very real. To that point, would you say that for people that are newer getting started, do you think it's smarter to start as an investor, or you think it's smarter to just start as an agent? Like, what's your take on that?
Question. I think it depends on one, your financials. Like, what is that? What if you have the
Sure.
financial stability to be able to just jump right in and blow your money and trust somebody else? Then yeah, maybe that's a smart move. But on the flip side to your point, if investing is all you want to do, then you can get the book knowledge without becoming an agent.
Right.
So I think it really depends on the person. I remember when I first took my class, the guy that taught my class said, if you want to be a real estate investor, take in this class. And in my mindset, it was agent is another stream of income that I didn't have before. So whether I'm doing sales or rentals, maybe I close 7, 10, 13 deals a year. Maybe 5 of those are rentals and the rest are sales or vice versa. That's still income that pays for the memberships. Also know a lot more about the industry. So for me, I saw it as, again, back to my original platform of wanting to be in it, to learn, to be able to drive my outside business.
Mm-hmm.
So that made more sense. I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what they want to do and really what their focus is. I think it's going to be maybe a little different for everybody.
Yeah.
I guess it just depends on the person.
Got it. What's your long-term goal as we get wrapped up here on this one? What's your long-term goal in real estate? What are you looking to do? You have something that you're trying to achieve in real estate, or is it just always going to be like a side thing for you?
Nah, I mean, my goal is to be a mogul.
There we go.
I want to. My long-term goal is I want to own 100 rentals throughout the city, and then I want to leverage that into just more opportunity to teach people how to be self-sufficient. I don't know that there's enough people out there teaching people how to be employed or build enough streams of income. So I would love to just the rental game going, do my thing, come in, own 100 properties, and then kind of fits that into helping other people build their own sufficiency, whether that's through career learning or getting them on the job experience, but really just kind of giving back. So real estate mogul slash seed spot, as you know, helping people kind of grow and do the things that they need to do.
That's right, man. It's so important. It's so important. The work that you're doing is super important to get people to the next level, specifically because this is property players on the real estate side of things. People just don't understand how important having real estate as a part of your portfolio is. Again, something that I teach. I haven't pushed as much into it as some people in the actual real estate space because coming from a financial space, I think more of the equity, business ownership, paper assets first to start your financial life, and then jumping into other investments such as real estate. But still, I think it's so needed out there for us as a community and just our generation of people. We just need to continue to learn how to build multiple streams of income. Like you said, how to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining, and real estate is one of the best ways to be able to do that. So as we kind of close it up, for the people that are just about to get started in real estate, McKinsey, give them 2 or 3 tips that, like, for somebody that's just ready to get started, what should they be thinking about, or what should they go do? 3 tips.
Yeah, I would say tip number 1 would be keep an open mind. Just stay focused on not knowing what you don't know. So keep an open mind, keep exploring, keep challenging yourself. You're never going to know everything, but there's somebody out there that does. know something that you're missing. So
Mm.
open mind to network, open mind to read, open mind to connect like we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just keeping an open mind to do things that you haven't done before, because the only way you're going to be successful is to do things you haven't done before. That's the whole point of becoming, an agent. You're on your own, so you're going to have to figure out how to survive there. So I would say that first one is just really keeping an open mind. The second thing I would say is understanding that you're now a brand. Like your personal brand is going to be so important, and just having an understanding that everything you do, the clients that you meet, what you post, the insight that you do provides your value that you provide. You're the brand. So copying off of another agent, or to your point earlier, copying off someone that just posts their listing, maybe that works for that person, but don't copycat. Kind of find your own thing. It's your brand. At the end of the day, you're the one that has to live or die by it. Nobody else is going to be the one that kind of makes adjustments and pivots. So really, your personal brand is so key, and making sure that you're authentic and it's who you are and what you want to do. And the last part I would say my last advice would be have fun. It's a grind. Lots and lots of paperwork sometimes, a lot of no's, a lot of yeses, but throughout the whole experience, the fact that you're getting into it on your own talks a lot about you as a person, as an individual. You obviously are doing it for a reason, so enjoy it. And remember why you got into it, and make sure you don't lose sight of that. There's a lot of nights where I'm like, oh, this sucks. Oh, I have no clients right now. But then I go back to that. I got into it, to build a portfolio, to help other people down the road. That's my why in it. So that's fun to me. So remembering that, but then going back to the number 2 step is like, all right, well, my personal brand, what am I missing in that brand? And then I go from that brand piece to that first step that I gave you, which is, what don't I know? Like, who should I be talking to? Who should I be asking? So those 3 things really go hand in hand in my mind. So 1, keep an open mind. 2, your personal brand. And then 3, have fun.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. For all you listeners out there, hopefully you guys wrote that down or picked it up, because those are some quality nuggets for anybody that's getting started or about to get started into real estate. Keeping that open mind is everything. That was your first point, but that's just huge. Just the fact that we are open to connecting with one another without knowing each other, just off of a message, and taking that somewhere. That's how you build your network. And for anyone, not just in real estate, but we'll keep it there. But honestly, it's really for everyone that just runs a business in general, being open to just continue learning, continuing to be a student, continuing to network, shake hands, and really just talk to people around the topic that you're passionate about will get you to that place of success. So that's awesome. McKinsey, tell everybody where they can find you, where you are normally residing in social land.
Yeah, so I spread it out a little bit, but McKinsey Alston is my handle for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So it's at McKinsey, McKinsey And then my real estate website is McKinseyAlston.org. Again, keeping it nice and simple. One platform all the way through. So McKinseyAlston.org. You can link up to my blog, my social media handles. Everything is in one place. So those are your 4 options to connect with me.
Awesome. Make sure you guys go out there and connect with McKinsey. He's obviously doing some great things. He wants to provide value. He wants to help. So reach out to him because we are the type of people that will continue to build our networks and build our net worth on just by building relationships with other people. So McKinsey, I appreciate you, man, jumping on the podcast.
Cool. Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you on, and hopefully we get a chance to chat soon. All right?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. So until next week, guys, we're signing off of the Property Players Podcast. Again, I'm C. Muzan. I'll talk to you guys soon.